The silence of a modern electric vehicle is often sold to us as the sound of the future. It is a sleek Humphrey glide that promises a world detached from the smoky, noisy, carbon-heavy legacy of the Industrial Revolution. We are told that every time we plug in a smartphone or charge a Tesla, we are participating in a miracle of engineering that is slowly healing the planet. But if you were to peel back the floorboards of that electric car, strip away the sleek aluminum chassis, and crack open the battery cells that power our digital lives, you wouldn't find a clean, sterile laboratory. Instead, you would find the red dust of the Congo, the sweat of informal laborers, and a geopolitical stranglehold that has quietly shifted the balance of global power while the United States was looking the other way. We call this the Green Revolution, and it is indeed a technological miracle, but for millions of people at the bottom of the supply chain, and perhaps for the future of American energy independence, it is becoming a slow-motion catastrophe that nobody wants to talk about. To understand how a technology designed to save the world is ruining lives, we have to look at the chemistry that powers your daily existence. Whether it is the phone in your hand right now or the electric sedan parked in the driveway, modern society runs on the lithium-ion battery. It is the beating heart of the 21st century economy. But a battery is not just a container for electricity, it is a mineral box. To make it work efficiently, to give you that range anxiety-free driving experience or that all-day battery life, you need specific ingredients. You need lithium, you need nickel, and, most critically, you need cobalt. Cobalt is the magic element that keeps batteries from overheating and extends their lifespan. It is the stabilizer. Without it, the battery revolution hits a wall. The problem is not the chemistry itself. The problem is where this chemistry comes from and who controls it. Geology is not fair. It does not distribute resources evenly across the globe. As luck, or perhaps a cruel cosmic joke would have it, the vast majority of the world. Truthfully, 70% of the global supply is found in one of the most unstable, impoverished, and exploited nations on Earth, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. If you drive 2 hours outside of Kolwezi in the southern DRC, the reality of your green energy future becomes visibly terrifying. This is not the high-tech automated mining operation you might picture in a corporate brochure. Here, tens of thousands of men, women, and children, known locally as creosaurs or diggers, descend into hand-dug tunnels that are little more than graves waiting to collapse. They work without helmets, without industrial ventilation, and without safety maps, chipping away at the earth with rebar and hammers to feed the insatiable hunger of the global tech industry. The dust they inhale contains heavy metals that have been linked to severe birth defects and respiratory diseases, a toxic legacy that is literally reshaping the genetics of the local population. When a tunnel collapses, which happens with depressing regularity, the bodies are often left buried because it is too expensive or too dangerous to retrieve them. This is the blood diamond dynamic of the digital age. But unlike diamonds, which are a luxury, cobalt is a necessity. You cannot simply opt out of the battery economy if you want to function in modern society. The uncomfortable truth is that the clean energy transition, which is being subsidized by American tax dollars and championed by Western governments, is currently being subsidized by the blood and sweat of the world's poorest workers. However, the tragedy of the Congo is only the first layer of this story. If the humanitarian crisis is the moral failure of this miracle technology, the geopolitical reality is the strategic nightmare. While American politicians spent the last 2 decades debating the existence of climate change or fighting wars over oil in the Middle East, the People's Republic of China was playing a game of 4-dimensional chess with a periodic table. Beijing realized early on that while the 20th century was defined by who controlled the oil pumps, the 21st century would be defined by who controlled the battery terminals. They didn't just buy the oil. They bought the soil. Through a combination of state-backed loans, infrastructure deals, and aggressive corporate maneuvering, Chinese entities have effectively cornered the market on the global battery supply chain. In the DRC alone, Chinese companies own or have stakes in 15 of the 19 largest industrial cobalt mines, but ownership of the mine is just the start. The real choke point is processing. You can dig up all the lithium and cobalt you want, but it is useless rock until it is refined into battery-grade chemicals. Today, China controls roughly 80% of the world's cobalt refining capacity and nearly 60% of the world's lithium processing. This means that even if the United States managed to open new mines in Nevada or strike a trade deal with Australia, the raw material would likely still have to be shipped to China to be processed before it could be put into a Ford or a GM vehicle. This creates a vulnerability that makes the 1970s oil embargo look like a minor inconvenience. We are transitioning our entire transportation fleet, our power grid storage, and our defense capabilities onto a platform that is almost entirely dependent on a strategic rival. Imagine a scenario where tensions over Taiwan escalate. Beijing wouldn't need to fire a single missile to cripple the American economy. They would simply need to restrict the export of processed battery materials. The assembly lines in Detroit would halt. The price of electronics would skyrocket, and the transition to green energy would grind to a halt. The United States has effectively traded a dependency on OPEC for a dependency on the Chinese Communist Party, and in doing so, we have handed over the keys to our energy future. It is important to note that this wasn't an accident. This was a calculated industrial strategy. While Western capital markets demanded quarterly returns and punished companies for investing in volatile regions like Central Africa, Chinese state-owned enterprises were operating with a multi-decade horizon. They were willing to absorb losses, build roads, and bribe local officials to secure access. They built what is essentially a vertical monopoly on the future. Now, Western automakers are waking up to this reality in a cold sweat. You see executives from Detroit and German engineers scrambling to bypass this supply chain, but unraveling 20 years of strategic dominance is not something that happens overnight. It takes a decade to bring a new mine online, and even longer to build the refining infrastructure to compete with China's scale. This brings us to the complicated figure of Elon Musk and the role of Tesla in this narrative. To his credit, Musk was one of the first industry titans to publicly acknowledge the cobalt problem. Tesla has been aggressively moving toward lithium iron phosphate batteries, or LFP, which do not require cobalt. This is a significant technological pivot, aimed specifically at removing the moral and financial stain of the Congo from the supply chain. However, LFP batteries have trade-offs. They generally have lower energy density, meaning less range and performance compared to the nickel-cobalt chemistries used in high-end vehicles. For the foreseeable future, if you want a truck that can tow a boat or a luxury car that can drive 400 miles on a charge, you are still tied to the cobalt supply chain. Furthermore, even as companies try to distance themselves from artisanally mined cobalt, the supply chain is notoriously murky. Once that sack of ore leaves the hands of a digger in the Congo and is sold to a middleman, it is mixed with or from industrial mines. By the time it reaches a refinery in China and then a battery factory in Nevada, the molecules are indistinguishable. Major tech companies like Apple, Microsoft, and Dell have faced lawsuits and public pressure regarding their supply chains. And while they all issue glowing sustainability reports, the reality on the ground often contradicts the paperwork in the boardroom. The clean, green label on the finished product is often the result of a complex laundering process that scrubs the dirt from the record, but not from the component itself. The economic implications for the average American are subtle but profound. As the demand for these minerals explodes, projections suggest we will need 40 times more lithium and 20 times more cobalt by 2040. The cost of living is going to be tethered to the stability of these supply chains. If the supply of these minerals remains constricted or monopolized, the dream of affordable electric vehicles for the working class will remain just that. A dream. We risk creating a two-tiered transportation society where the wealthy drive clean, high-tech vehicles while the rest are priced out, stuck maintaining aging internal combustion engines that become increasingly expensive to fuel and insure. Moreover, the push to break free from this dependency is leading to new environmental and social conflicts closer to home. In the rush to catch up to China, the U.S. government is fast-tracking mining permits in places like Nevada, leading to clashes with indigenous groups and environmentalists who are understandably confused. They are being told that to save nature, we must destroy this specific piece of nature. It is the ultimate utilitarian dilemma. Is it acceptable to bulldoze a sacred site, or disrupt a local ecosystem in the American West to prevent the collapse of the global climate? This is the impossible choice that the miracle technology forces us to make. There is also a looming shadow on the horizon that could make the situation in the Congo look like a prelude. As land-based resources become harder to secure, the eyes of the industry are turning toward the deep ocean. The Clarion-Clipperton Zone in the Pacific Ocean is littered with polymetallic nodules, rocks sitting on the seafloor that are packed with cobalt, nickel, and manganese. Mining these nodules could theoretically free the world from the grip of the Congo and the processing dominance of China. But marine biologists warn that sending giant robotic harvesters to dredge the ocean floor could cause irreversible damage to ecosystems we have not even begun to understand. We are on the verge of starting a gold rush in the last untouched place on Earth, all in the name of sustainability. This is the paradox of the miracle technology. We have built a narrative that technology is a clean break from the past, that we can innovate our way out of the messy reality of resource extraction. But the laws of physics and economics are stubborn. Energy has to come from somewhere. Materials have to be dug out of the ground. And right now, the cost of that extraction is being paid by the most vulnerable people on the planet and leveraged by our biggest geopolitical rival. The shiny, silent future of the American road is being powered by a noisy, dirty, and dangerous reality thousands of miles away. As we push forward into this electrified age, the question isn't whether electric vehicles are better than gas cars technologically and the data suggests they are necessary. The question is whether we can build a supply chain that does unreplicate the sins of the oil age. Can we demand a battery that is truly clean, not just in its operation, but in its creation? Or are we willing to accept that our green paradise is built on a foundation of human misery and strategic vulnerability? The silence of the electric engine is beautiful, but we need to make sure it isn't drowning out the warning sirens ringing across the global supply chain. So, as you look at the changing landscape of the American highway, with charging stations replacing gas pumps and silence replacing the roar of the V8, it is worth asking what we are really buying into. We are trading one set of problems for another, and right now, we are losing the leverage to solve them. The true cost of the miracle technology is not on the sticker price. It's buried in the red earth of Africa and the processing plants of East Asia. Therefore, the true question is not whether this change will happen, but whether the United States is prepared to face the reality of what it costs to run the future. What do you think? Is this the inevitable price of progress that we just have to accept, or are we sleepwalking into a future that we neither control nor understand?